Motion. Councilmember Jones?
Aye.
Councilmember Case? Councilmember Knudsen? Here. Councilmember Putnam?
Here.
Councilmember Steiger?
Here.
Councilmember Walker? Here. We have a quorum.
Let's see, additions or corrections of the agenda. And we want to add item K from the mayor on opening the park and restrooms. Also item L for me, recognizing next month as National Bike Month. Any other additions? Okay. Then, item A. Resolution 2014-141, amendment to the AHPL agreement on Milwaukee Boulevard.
Am I allowed to move it?
Oh, yeah.
No, I don't need a microphone, I don't want anybody to hear me.
You gotta have it for the record or something. Right there.
Okay, are we good now? We already have a contract with AHBL for for this, but this is a change in scope, actually. We did a portion of it, and this is to actually finalize, let's see, make sure I'm on the right one. It's a budget reduction for this portion.
Not spending less money coming.
Gary's not here.
Sure. We have a grant for $120,000. We contracted with AHBL to, actually, I'm going to let Sean explain it a little better, since he's here.
Thank you, Ken. Good evening, Mayor and Council. So what you have before you is a proposal to reduce our scope of work for the Milwaukee project. When we came to you back late last year, we received authorization to perform 30% to 90% design of 3 different facilities within the Milwaukee Boulevard corridor, 3 low-impact development facilities, 1 in front of City Hall, 2 within the frontage of the Milwaukee Boulevard project south of 3rd Avenue. When we had the geotechnical work done, we found the soils were very poor and their ability to retain is difficult, so stormwater tends to sit versus drain the soils freely, which we anticipated, but because of our grant, we have to go through the studies and have the formal reports prepared. So since that has been prepared, we've modified the Milwaukee Boulevard project to go back within the right-of-way and still propose grass facilities where people can park, etc. No ditches, but just grass areas within the right-of-way. And then in front of City Hall, we'll actually have a rain garden facility. But in terms of providing retention facility in all 3 areas, it didn't make any sense. So we've essentially reduced our budget, I think about $13,000 from the original contract amount to accommodate that. Questions?
Alrighty, next up also AHBL engineering services for the stormwater outfall treatment project.
Sean, can take that one too.
So on this particular item, late last year we came to you and received 30% design approval for the city outfall project. And as you recall, what that was again, part of the biennium grants you received to look at a series of outfall locations within the city and to essentially create a matrix and find out which projects were the best qualified to design improvements. So we did that. We prepared a 30% submittal to ecology, got some comments back in reference to that, and then sat down with staff and took our short list of outfalls and took a look at what we felt within the realm of funds remaining could be designed. So the money we took out in the Milwaukee project, we rolled it back into the outfall project, understanding that everything we're doing is within the $120,000 grant numbers, so neither of these projects are costing the city any dollars, are strictly funded by grants. So what we've come up with is, of the 3 outfalls that were studied, we think 2 of them can be designed. And instead of going to 90% design, we're going to go to 100% design. That puts you in a better position to obtain grant funding for construction. I should say on the Milwaukee project too, we are going to 100% versus 90%, and I forgot to mention that. So that would be the case for both projects. Questions?
Council President?
Thank you.
Resolution 2014-143, amendment to the agreement with parametrics for pre-design engineering on Valentine 136.
This is, we have a change, when we went to the wetlands in a box, we have a change in the design for Valentine. They did a design for the original Department of Ecology grant, but they did not do a complete design for the wetlands in a box. So this is the additional cost for the final design for wetlands in a box, which are now, since 2 weeks ago, approved by Department of Ecology for use, so we will get to keep our Department of Ecology grant.
Questions?
Just want to make sure, I talked to Ken, but I want to make sure that the rest of the council knows that this is in the city of Sumner, Ted Hill's aware of this.
Yes.
And the project management.
Council pleasure? Okay, 2014-144, authorizing submittal of a grant application to King County Project Evaluation Committee for federal funding assistance for the interurban trail, 3rd Avenue to County Line.
This is just council approval to go ahead and file for a grant for the interurban trail. There will be, all these grants that we're looking at tonight will have a city match, but until we know whether we get the grant or not, we won't know what the match is.
This one says 13.5% match. Is there at least money to play with within the fund that you're looking at pulling it from?
Yes.
Because, I mean, if we don't have $135,000 in it,
Other council questions? Council pleasure? Resolution 2014-145, authorizing submittal of a grant application to King County Project Evaluation Committee for Milwaukee Boulevard between Ellingson and 5th Avenue South.
This is a grant for the funding for construction for the overlay of Milwaukee Boulevard. It also will have some sort of matching amount, and there is some funds for that, but right now we're not sure how much funds we'll get, so we don't know what our exact match is going to be. And if we do get the grant and we don't have the funds, we can turn the grant down. We don't have to take the grant. So that's why we want to go ahead and apply and at least show that we're interested in the money, and we can always go ahead.
are these grants being applied for internally, or are we having?
Internally.
HBO?
No, we're doing it internally.
So it's minimal cost.
Yes.
And then they can come back with pretty much any figure up to what we're applying for?
Yes.
This is the grant which we lost, right?
Correct.
Other council questions? Council pleasure? 2014-146, authorizing submittal of a grant application to P.C.S for federal funding assistance for interurban trail from Pacific to Edgewood.
This is a grant for the trail portion that would go up the old interurban electric railway. Same kind of thing. There is probably going to be a matching funds amount, and for the amount we're asking for, we do have the funds. But until we know whether or not we get the grant, we'd like to apply and then go from there. And all these grants are being applied for in-house. So.
Now, this is just a section of it in Pacific, or is it?
This is just it's a section of it in Pacific. At this time, we're working with Edgewood to see if they'll but they're really short-staffed now, so.
Or does this be the section going under 167 there, where they're...
Yes.
Any council questions? Council pleasure? 2014-147, authorizing submittal of a grant application to P.C.S for Stewart Road between Valentine and White River Bridge.
Again, this is to continue on Stewart Road. It's a grant application for the railroad crossing and the continuation from Valentine to the Sumner line. Sumner has given us a letter and with an obligation of a certain amount of funds towards this, and they are partnering with us on this grant application.
Question related, is Sumner doing anything in relationship to their portion related to the bridge, Cricket Bridge?
Yes, yeah, they went for a freight mobility grant.
Right.
Other questions? Council pleasure?
I do have one about the previous one. Sorry if I can go back. Would it behoove us to help Edgewood fill out their portion of the grant application?
That's what we're trying to get a hold of the right person there so we can do that. Right now, like I said, they're really short-staffed.
Okay. Because it's going to help, if it's going to make the grant application look better by having more jurisdiction.
We want to partner with Edgewood on it.
Cool.
Just out of curiosity, actually, as long as we're going back to that one, since that one is the section that goes under 167, have we talked to WashDOT about it? And have we talked?
We have talked to WashDOT about it, yes.
And I know also Cascade Bicycle Club and Bicycle Alliance of Washington are both strongly in favor of getting connectivity through there, and would probably endorse the grant.
Okay.
Good idea. Okay, then 2014-148, authorizing submittal of a pedestrian and bicycle grant application to WashDOT for construction of the interurban trail from 3rd Avenue South to Roy Road.
This is another application for a grant to complete the interurban trail from 3rd to Stewart. There are portions that are completed, but we want to complete the entire thing. So it's just cleaning house, trying to get out of the trail business. We do have some backing on this one. WashDOT said they weren't going to. They are going to back us on this because they need a trail corridor so that they can shut down bicycles on 167 for the hot lane. So, and we have a very good advocate for bicycling. So.
Yeah, I actually do ride 167 occasionally.
I have a question. It says, please note that there are multiple applications for the same project. What does that mean?
We have several applications going in for the same project to get the funding we need. Did that answer your question?
Budget grants, kind of like.
Correct. Yes, multiple grants to get the funding.
We got part of that in the UPS, and then we got the part that's going to come up from Stewart Road.
Correct.
To tie into the UPS.
Well, actually, the Stewart Road portion only does the frontage on Stewart, and Gordon has graded the portion north from Stewart to the UPS,
Yeah.
but it's not paved.
I didn't grade it, but I thought that was all part of the.
No, that's not part of the Stewart Road, that's totally, separate.
That is separate, so we don't have any funding for that.
We don't have any funding for that. Although, for what we're talking about for paving, if we get to a point where that's all that's left to do, we're probably only talking about a couple $1,000s to pave that section, so we may just end up wanting to pave it.
Council pleasure? Move that forward. And 2014-149, authorizing submittal of a safe routes to school grant application to WashDOT for sidewalks on 2nd Avenue Southwest.
As you know, we don't have any sidewalks on 2nd Avenue Southwest. We have the opportunity through grants for safe routes to school to do that. There is a need for it because there's a lot of kids that walk that. For one, there's a lot of people that walk 2nd Avenue. And it would be a good upgrade for the city.
Questions? Council pleasure?
Move it forward.
That concludes the public works grant portion of
Hey, Ken, you want to take mine too?
No. Financial capacity, right now it's just approval. Can they do the consent agenda next week? Amy's shaking her head.
I
We could pull them off if we wanted to discuss them,
Yeah,
but.
I didn't hear anybody contest any part of any of them, so they seem fairly sure of that. Works for me.
Are we following the right rules?
Yeah.
No money appropriated yet.
Right. All right, first quarter financial report. Oh, wait, yeah.
Wouldn't we need to at least give a reading on them?
Yes, we have to put all the titles of them in, I think we have to go through the title of them, consent report.
Yeah, so we might as well bring each one of them individually, because we got to basically do the same thing anyway.
But we wouldn't vote 9 times, or 8 times, or how many it was. We vote, we read them all, resolution such and such, what it is, we vote.
Oh, I see what you're talking about, one lump vote.
Yeah. We run by these right.
So you're showing error on that.
Okay, financial report.
Good evening. For the first quarter financial report, there's nothing surprising. Everything is pretty much as expected. Bias is really making it nice to put these reports together, unlike Springbrook, so I'm pleased with that, with the results of that. Is there any questions? I can add more or take some from the reports, but I included the summary of cash flow. There's 2 different kinds of cash flow. One is with beginning balance, and one is out. I thought it'd be good to see the one without, so you'd actually have a net of where the position, how much we've gained or lost for the year to date. And so I thought that would be good, always good to look at that separate from where we are total cash. And yes, the first quarter we did, see a decrease in our cash position, but that's normal because we pay for our entire insurance, liability insurance payment. We bought a couple of pieces of equipment. It wasn't the vacuum we purchased, it was the mini excavator. The mini excavator, so that's what it was, right? For $77,000. So really, we're looking pretty good after the first quarter, and we're keeping.
Plus property tax doesn't come into it.
Exactly. We have nothing from that until April. So second quarter and third quarter are really the big quarters, especially with the projects coming on this summer, spring and summer. And I did go over this with the finance committee, at least with Josh and Vic. John was Vic, and they looked over the numbers. So, but if you never want a report, I can email directly from Bias to you. Everyone, small or large, it's up to you. So it's very simple to do that.
And these 2 versions of cash flow are just something that it does, not that you have to.
Right, yes. I'm coming up with reports for them, but yeah, I know. It's doing what I wanted it to do. We're still working on the 2013 annual report, and that's having some challenges because of bringing the Springbrook numbers over, but that's a different story. So we'll get through that, though. So are there any questions anybody has about anything? Right, first quarter report? I remember I told you how we do this, that it's not required by state audit, but they do look favorably upon cities that actually, the council do get this report and do approve it or just acknowledge it at council meetings. I will always do that for you.
So we'll have that on the agenda next time.
Okay?
Thanks.
You're welcome, thank you.
Item K, clerk opening and restroom.
Okay. So, as I had mentioned in my report, and I've been working on, probably for a little over a month when I bombarded the county legislature committee, executive committee meeting regarding opening the park. My main request was that when they open it up from driveway to driveway, that we would be able to take off the top row of Tesco's from driveway to driveway. They're not agreeable to that. For several reasons, and they make good sense as far as the integrity of the Tesco's and replacing them and putting it back on the mesh things that they're encased in up there And so part of the problem is if to remove them and put them back up, it takes away the integrity and puts the integrity at the bottom. And the cost that's in that also that it would cost. They say it would probably cost in the neighborhood about $78,000. And they're not willing to pick up that tab. The City of Pacific is not willing to pick up that tab. But they will pick up the tab on opening up both driveways, which up to $40,000, and they feel that, and that would be opening up the driveways and closing them back up in the fall. And so they're going to try to keep the cost down. They believe they should be able to get it done for $20,000. And I wanted council, and would they pick up the tab? We don't have to pay for it. Anything above $40,000, the city will have to pick up the tab, but they believe they can get it done. We do have monies available from King County, and I'm trying to remember the name of it. There's a fund that they give to the city for flood control, and they increase the amount, but right now we have like $38,000 in that city with another $10,000 coming. And it's related to flood prevention and, maintaining the parks regarding floods. That money is, and not only the parks, but other portions of the city. And so that money is available to us, and plus we have also applied for a grant, but the deadline is June 25th, and they probably won't even be awarding it until close to summer. And then that money, we have 2 years to use it, so they're probably going to have us use that money in the future to open and close the park. So my concern has been, and what I talked to King County when I met with them, was the safety in the park. Concerned about that barrier being there and being inside there. On my way here tonight, I went down, I kind of looked at it, I'm like, well, I think our priority is to have the park open, and we want to be safe. So one of the things that we can do, and I've asked Ken to look into the pricing for this, is that money that we have there at King County to use at the park with flood-related control and stuff like that, is to set us up with surveillance cameras down there, and so that my understanding too is there's software available that can let us know, like if there's somebody in the park, like certain times of day, that kind of thing. And so I want to look into that and probably go that route as far as the safety issue. I know the citizens of Pacific will not be happy if we kept the park closed. I think we'll have a bigger risk on our hand with people climbing over the Hesco and going down to the river in the summertime and using the park. I think maybe we need to kind of take on an attitude, and we might want to start migrating away from that park and using our own facilities. We did put in for a grant for developing the campus here, which includes the park, and try to include Centennial Park as our city park, and kind of work towards that direction. Right now, this is what we have. We're willing to pay for that, and then if council is okay with us, just kind of move forward and look at pricing and the surveillance camera. What I had done is I had told King County, I would like to speak to council before I say, yes, go ahead, mobilize on Wednesday and open up the park. I wanted everybody aware of it and aware of my concerns. And so I kind of wanted a consensus, like a nod, like, yeah, I think we're going to have a bigger problem if we keep the park closed. I'll speak with the police department and ask for a little more patrolling. And they also, King County has allowed us access. There's, they bought those trailers that are along the levee there. Mm-hmm. And they bought all of that. And they have access where they can sit right up there at that very first lot and oversee the whole park. They can see everything. And so, and ask them to use that. King County says, use it, it's all yours, and we'll make sure that we keep it, when they're tearing things down, to know that that is a platform for us, for to have a patrol car to be able to go in there and look at the park. So, with that, I've been having some conversations, and if you want to take one for yourself, Amy, and pass the rest around. I asked him, we've been having a lot of concerns about the bathrooms down there at the park, the vandalism. I asked him to go back and look at how much we are spending on maintaining that bathroom down there. It's constantly being vandalized, and the police department, what they've been doing is they've been going in at dusk, right about dusk time, and going down and locking it up. They check the bathrooms, lock it up. people have been getting in there and stuffing the toilets full of toilet paper and overflowing them. They're flooding out the bathrooms. They've had to replace the toilets in there, replace the sinks in there, the doors on the stalls. We're just having a lot of problems with vandalism. So this is a cost comparison on a monthly, because I asked, well, what's the price if we have like Santa cans, you know, put in there, a handicapped and a regular, and they're maintained, and that would be national, that gave us the price. And they're looking at $400 a month, and they would come through and clean it twice a week and fill it up. And looking at the price of what it's costing us to maintain those. And another thing, if we're gonna kind of be looking towards getting away from the city park and moving our facilities, you know, I think it might be a smart move for us. And the other part is, it takes away some of the safety factor that I'm concerned about, that that's totally locked up, closed down, and we don't have to worry about anything happening inside there. It makes me feel a little bit more comfortable. And looking at it, I wanted that park real visible, and that was what I've made very clear to King County about opening that, why I wanted that top layer off. You cannot see from the street in there. You can see from the parking lot. Okay, you open the driveway, well, yeah, you got some visibility in there in the other driveway. The apartments can see in there, you know, and with a little bit more patrol. And then if we're able to invest in camera surveillance, you know, I think that might be the route to go. So I wanted to bring that up for some conversation, some thoughts, ideas from council.
So if we do the portables, then whenever we have events, we can still open the bathrooms.
Well, generally what happens is they get more. They always, when we have Pacific Days or even the car show, they bring portables in.
If they're vandalized, are we liable for the replacement?
No, that's part of the understanding.
That's they take care of everything. If they're vandalized, they replace it. We have no expensive.
And my understanding, and I was talking to a kid out there, so I'm like, oh, bolt them right up to the building or something, because I could just see them being tipped over or whatever. And I guess they come with framing where we can mount it to the ground, where they won't be tipped over and that kind of thing. So it's unfortunate that we came to, you know, we have to do something like that. But with the cost to the city and looking at opening it up, I just don't see.
I suggest we don't put them back in the building because
when they climb on the building or something.
they get burned.
Oh, yeah.
And fiberglass burns.
Great. Great. So, what are your?
Well, myself, in relationship to the cameras, we've been talking about that for a number of years. So, in the evening and stuff like that, so I'm all for it. The visual security issues. I know that people have some issues with it, but it's a public area, and we just need to make, providing security, not spying.
I have a question about the cameras. Would we purchase them and have it going year-round, or just during the months that the park is open? Like hire a security firm that would do the monitoring?
The monitoring would be done by us or the police department. And that was one of the things that we had talked about, the software, that it would be able to alert somebody via text or whatever. They've been looking into it for the reservoir. And, you know, that type of software, so there would be alert, you know, after hours kind of thing. People aren't supposed to be in the park, supposed to be closed at dark. We know people go in there, you know, but at least it'd be picked up and, you know, like the police department's alert, they can just cruise through there and make sure it's safe. I'm trying to think of what is the safest and best alternative for the city by opening it up. And one of the things that I think as well is the camera, and probably John, you're along on the same page, is by having the cameras there and it's posted that it is under surveillance, it's going to help kind of keep down any issues I think that we might have.
Could we look at the cost difference of getting reasonably securely installed but portable cameras so that they could also be used for other surveillance needs in the city, especially during the time of year the park's closed, if there's vandalism issues, if there's trespass issues on some property that's red tag or something, the, portable camera.
The cameras, we've been looking at for like the well site or the reservoir are a really small camera, so they, I mean, it wouldn't be a big deal, and they're all self-contained, so it's not like it has to have hardware or anything, they're solar powered, and, they would, from what we're finding with the software, it's about $400 per camera, and that would alert either a smartphone or a computer, depending on how you have it set up. And, yeah, I mean, they're small enough to where you can just unmount them from where they're at and move them somewhere else.
That's inexpensive enough, I almost wonder if you ought to get a spare or just have it, so the person can be able to use it.
Well, I was gonna say, when the park is closed, it's still beneficial to have the security, because we can't see in there at all. So, I think it should be retained in there, at least, at that price, we can afford to buy another unit.
I always thought like in the winter time or whatever too, I forgot the sensor floodlights too, that the open in there, the light would come on, you know, that's right, the screen being in there. But I get used to it and then ignore it.
How many cameras would we have to have surveillance into the park?
You know, we'd have to look at it and see what.
We don't have any estimate on that.
No, we don't have the estimate on that.
One camera ain't gonna do it.
No, one camera's not gonna do it.
Well, and the other thing, Ken, I just found out today, I was really, really hoping that King County would see my way and take off that top row. But they're just not willing to put them.
I doubt it where they would go.
I had to go, why?
Appreciate that.
But at least, you know, their response too was, well, it's been the park or the city's responsibility for their expense to open and close those driveways. And I said, yeah, but that's when you had sandbags there, not this huge wall at HESCO's, but that's how they were able to justify paying for that portion of it.
Next thing is on these rentals, so like Pacific Days, for example, so we need to bring in, say, 5 more Santa cats. So do we have just for like do we have a 2-week price on it, or do we have to pay for a whole month first? Then, I mean,
For Pacific Days?
well, when we bring in additional Santa Claus, do we have to bring them in and commit to a whole month for them?
No,
Do they have a weekly rate, or?
Every year Pacific Days has additionals, and they only charge them for the weekend, the time that it's here. They deliver them and pick them up.
But not the city, city's not in charge, it's a partnership.
Partnership.
Well,
And the
I
tourism
understand that,
fund, basically.
but it's not, but like the car show, for example.
Right. And that is something that Harry Holmes made the agreement, brought it in, and they were able to be reimbursed by it from tourism fund money. But they paid for it, they made the arrangements, they had them delivered and picked up.
Okay, so when we give the park to a bicycle club or something else, it has to be with the understanding of any additional Santa cans that needed is going to be at their expense.
Because right now, really, we only offer, what, 2 stalls in each right now. So, I mean, kind of reduce them, but not, I mean,
Kind of give you an idea of what kind of vandalism we're getting. Last summer, we had to replace 4 toilets at the top.
Oh, I well know that.
$400 a piece, so,
We went to cast iron ones and that didn't work. We
yeah.
went to stainless steel ones, and tore those off and sold them.
it's really sad that we have to do that. It's not one of my favorite things. When we first started talking about it, even at Ken, I'm like, what? No. You know, we start looking at the expense, and I'm like, oh, well, the city could use that money elsewhere.
Council questions on that?
So is everybody okay with me to send Dean an email and say, go ahead, get your crew going on Wednesday? Hopefully have the park open by the weekend.
Then, last on the agenda, Bike Month. It is National Bike Month in May, recognized by Federal Department of Transportation, State Department of Transportation, various other government agencies in the state, and just wanted to recognize that here in Pacific as well. It is, has no legal effect, but it's a policy statement in favor of bicycles at a convenient time when we are looking for all sorts of grants for improving the trail and help show that we're actually on board with it. Any questions on that? I'll have it written up and
May I ask a quick question of council before we adjourn? Does council see a need for the city attorney to attend next week's meeting?
Based on what we have tonight?
Because I would take on workshops, I'm gonna be asking that question from here on out.
Just with the approval that all those items can be lumped into one vote.
And we can do that via phone.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
I'm actually going there tomorrow.
I'm looking at cost savings for the city.
And I had something before we adjourned. I don't know if we need to suspend the rules, I wanted to add it to the agenda. I apologize for being late. But my kid's high school baseball game. Wanted to report on marijuana uses advisory work group and pass out our draft report. So everyone kind of review it, and then I need some guidance on process.
Very good, well done.
Sure.
I read it over the weekend.
So question is do we need legal review on
Yes, sir.
it, since it's just a fact sheet?
It's just a fact sheet, I would think no. I have one thing.
Sorry, this is mine. I actually modified it.
Okay.
I'm an English guy.
Well, I was wondering if you were gonna put the date on instead of words.
Tomorrow. Hopefully tomorrow night we finalize it. So, basically, we got members, not members of the community, but people who have leases in town. And I realize it's not our responsibility to cater to people who came in without all the facts and got leases for buildings, but I do think we should be sensitive to it. And the question I have is the way I outlined it, I thought we as a council could decide whether we, based on these facts, would be open to allowing these businesses to operate in the city. And if we are, can we vote on it at the next meeting, yes or no, based on this, without the zoning ordinance, so that these people, if we say no, can get out of their leases, without, one group's paying $17,000 a month for an empty building, and they've been doing so since November, and I'm not sure what James Dusick's group's doing, but they're not far behind. I think they're at, close to $10,000 a month, so, I looked at, I got involved in this because I had a list of concerns a mile long, and I thought we'd find something that would say, no, it'd be easy, can't do it, but I've changed my position on it after doing the research. I can't find any reason not to allow these businesses to go forward. They're a legal entity. And what really tipped it over for me was when someone in the audience said, what's the difference between growing this in a warehouse and growing tomato plants in a warehouse? Because the state's managing the drug aspect, the controlled substance aspect. So when you look at it from a business perspective, whom I to dictate what vice someone has, whom I to dictate what kind of businesses come in town. As long as they're considered legal, why should I stand in their way? And all of my concerns were addressed. And I didn't get any concerns from anyone forwarded from either the planning commission or council or the mayor to do any further research. And all the research we found convinces me that we should probably allow it to happen. So, but I wanted to provide you guys with this draft report, and if we don't need to send it to an attorney, then most likely tomorrow night we'll get a date on it for tomorrow night's date, and it'll be approved unless someone from the work group comes in with something else that needs to be added. But even then, we'll probably add it tomorrow night and then finalize it. Did you have anything, Katie?
I've been sick, and I have not been able to do anything. I haven't been able to work, gone to work.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Vic, I have just been totally useless to you. You smile, I know.
But I'm pretty happy with the way the document came together. We got a lot of input we allowed a lot of audience participation, and we used some of the input that we got. We vetted it, researched their facts, and confirmed them. Some of it I wasn't able to confirm, so I didn't use it. But it seems like, the document went together pretty well. I spent a lot of time making sure it looks professional and is complete, so. Anybody got any questions regarding that? But again, I did want some guidance on process. Is this something that we could pass a resolution that would say we're open to allowing these businesses to come in?
Well, I think,
If we can, develop a zoning?
I think that could get us in a lot of trouble. There's a whole process that still needs to go through. It still needs to go through planning commission, it has to have public hearings regarding the ordinance and everything.
But that's for zoning.
Before, well, I mean, there's still, a lot of the rules and everything that has to be written or policy behind it, and I don't think we would
Well,
want.
that's what I'm saying. If you read this, you'll find out that there's very little the city has to do. It's, the state's controlling it. It's the state's baby, and they got a ton of regulations that they have to follow. They're being inspected. We have options available to us to ensure that they're complying.
Question.
Yeah.
I know that you said that it made a huge impact on you when somebody said it's no different than growing tomatoes. But selling marijuana and selling tomatoes are two different things. And processing them using volatile chemicals, there's nothing to compare tomatoes to that. But I agree, growing marijuana and growing tomatoes are very similar.
Well, we have, like I said, we have some flexibility in what processes we allow. We don't have to allow the
Processing or the retail.
No, I mean, I guess we don't have to allow any of it, I guess, I mean, to be honest.
Well, yeah, I think we're right. There's so much controversy about it right now. Why aren't they in office? Why aren't they going off?
They are.
They are in office.
Well, yeah.
We can't escape
Well, I
it.
mean, I look at it from a perspective of, I had a ton of concerns, and I looked at them, and my concerns have all been addressed, even on the processing part. There's industrial closed-loop systems that's mandatory from the state. The state's gonna make them if they're gonna use hydrocarbons, which is flammable, as that process. It has to be a closed-loop system. It's the same systems that they use to do lavender oils, pine oils, all this stuff. I mean, that's what that's what the processing
There
is.
is certifications to show that these people are going to.
They're engineered systems, and they're not
I don't know what
cheap.
that means.
Well, it means that they've been certified to be used for process. They can use CO2, they can use inert gas too. And now, while several jurisdictions, when we researched, a lot of jurisdictions have studied this. And the ones that have studied it have wound up allowing it. And it's the ones that are not allowing it that haven't really studied it and looked at it. And so, at least from what I've seen, I haven't seen anyone that's done an in-depth look at it and then turned around and said no. But even when the recommendations came out not to use hydrocarbons, ultimately in the end, they allowed them because of the commercial grade systems that are being used. This is an industry, they have to use industrialized equipment and do it properly. And, there are things, when we get to the zoning, whether we want to, be isolated from the rest of the business or what have you, that we can come up with.
Who inspects the businesses to make sure that they are following?
Well, that's just it. We got several options. We can do just a general business license, and they'll get their annual fire inspection, and the liquor control board comes in and looks at them annually too. If we do conditional use permits, we can set those up quarterly. All the fees for allowing the extra staff time to commit to going out and doing the inspection. So our building inspector could go out, the fire department could go out quarterly and ensure that everything's being complied with. And during conditional use, if they ever violate something major, you never have to renew the license at that point, or the permit. And then the cost of sending people out can be covered in the cost of the permit. You just gotta determine what that cost would be. Well, I mean, everyone's been in the loop. Staff's worked with me, Ken's had input on it. Paula obviously has had input on it, and I talked to Chief Calkins, and, basically, no one's got any major concerns with it. if you can get rid of the bias that we have, but when you look at it, yeah, it's a controlled substance, but so is alcohol, and alcohol is perfectly legal. And when you look at the social aspect of it, alcohol in some respects is more damaging than marijuana, but marijuana is still new, it hasn't been legal, so we don't know, until we get there.
As far as procedurally, I would think since this is a zoning issue that it should, we should acknowledge receipt of it, forward it to the planning commission.
The planning commission will get it.
Ask them to incorporate it into their review of the zoning ordinance and suggestions towards licensing.
Yeah. So that's one thing I need to try, because my process was to bring it to council simultaneously, because it goes to planning commission tomorrow night, they get a copy of the draft as well. Nobody briefed on it. Our committee meets tomorrow night and takes the draft off of it and puts the date and the completed product, and we go from there. But I want to stay within that 6-month period that we decide one way or the other, thumbs up or thumbs down. And, this process went relatively quick, and, we're 2.5 months into it already, so, I think,
Well, first off, I'd like to commend Vic and the advisory group on the work they did. I think a lot of information they went through, and looked at the research information. I'm gonna spend a lot of time taking a look at this. I do believe because it's an advisory committee, though, a subset of the planning commission, and we have a requirement for the planning commission to provide the council with the recommendations related to the zoning. And I understand what Councilmember Cade talked about, the 2 companies that have already, stepped up and took rental properties in the city and the cost of them. And I know that it's very costly for empty facilities. I'm more than likely leaning towards support of the businesses, but I want to make sure that we have the proper zoning reviews and codes in place to deal with that, and then I'm hoping that from the planning commission, either we have 2 recommendations for and against, or they cannot see any reason not to, or why they opposed to it, and present those to the council for recommendation within the time frame we're talking about, because I don't want to see this go any longer than the 6-month window that we put together, because, one, I don't want to see us get into a legal issue with anybody related to the amount of time we've delayed this issue to be voted on, and the fact of the matter is the state is allowing. I know there's other issues. I know some courts have dealt with some issues related to the cities of being acceptable as far as rejecting them in the city. But I think we need to take a clear view of what is being recommended, what the state has done, what's the impact of the city and the citizens, and what are we hearing from the citizens? Because right now, the public meetings that we've had, we're not hearing anything from the citizens. I mean, not publicly, not addressing the council, so.
Well, it's really not getting out to the people.
That's right, they haven't had the
I mean,
opportunity.
just because we have a public hearing on marijuana, that you're gonna get a handful of people. I mean, you don't reach out to the people around. Well, somehow, if you want a true input from the public, you have to say you're gonna shut the city down for a week.
I was just gonna say, we had plenty of people beating on the door when we thought we were gonna become Auburn.
Yeah, that's right.
But anyway, that's
We've advertised all of these meetings that we've had, at least 4 of them for sure. The first one was more of a meet and greet, I think, but all of our meetings have been advertised to the public, and we haven't had anyone who's opposed to come to the meetings, and you would have expected that's what happened. At some point in time, people should know that we're working on it. The one thing I caution is the planning commission is dealing with the zoning aspect of it, and if it fits within zoning, they're gonna make a recommendation that this is where it fits. It's still up to us to decide you know, the other aspects of it. So expecting, the planning commission to come out and make a recommendation against it would be improper, because it's not their job to decide whether we should have the businesses or not have the businesses. Their job is to see if what they do as a business fits within the zoning that we have available. That's their job. It's our job to decide the rest of it. That's why this report's coming, both the council and the planning commission simultaneously. Because we address all the issues in here as a fact-based report. There's no opinion, there's no recommendation from this committee, unless, you know, they're given the direction to provide a recommendation. It's just, you know, a matter of, for me, it was a matter of getting over the hurdle of it's wrong. You know, it's not something that I value, and it's not part of my value system to use it, or I definitely don't want my kids using it. But, like I said, I enjoy a drink every now and then, and I do so responsibly, and I think marijuana is another one of those vices that people have proven to use responsibly. I mean, statistics show that half of America has used marijuana. And when you consider that almost half the population is under 18, when you say half, that's a lot of people that have used marijuana. And so that means that there's some people who have used it responsibly, and once it's legalized, we'll find out if it's a detriment to society or it's not. So far, it's, you know, yeah, people can have problems with it, just like they have problems with alcohol. It's just another vice. I don't agree with cigarette smoking. I think it's bad for your health. I think it's one of the worst things in our country right now, health-wise, but a lot of people do it. My parents did it. My father died from it. So, but again, who am I to pass that type of judgment or to tell people they can't do something that the state is deemed legal?
So, and if I could direct council's attention to page 18 of this report, and you can notice how much money comes back to the city. Page 18. $0.
That's what I was wondering, when
Yeah.
they ever got that straightened out.
They haven't got it straightened out.
Any revenue at all back in three, my last.
I mean, other than the B&O taxes we collect and the sales tax.
Well, yeah, they,
But-
been around that.
But it's, you know, it's something that they were working on. I mean, the recommendation was that 35% of the excise tax comes back to local jurisdictions that allow it. And that's what they're
State's
working
gonna give that up.
I don't know.
You live under a wrong fantasy world. So, you'll never gonna receive any revenue. All it's gonna do is cause additional expense to patrolling and monitoring and everything else. You don't want to believe what's gonna happen is whether the public wants it or whether they go ahead and approve it. And then you'll see how many people you get in. That's gonna be your problem. I'm not, there's too much controversy. I see what's going on in Colorado. They got a huge mess. They don't know where they're at. They're worse than Washington is in this whole thing.
That's not what we found. We found that they're actually pretty far away.
The people that I know in Colorado are lying. This point right now, there's not been enough pattern of anything that a little small town like ours could justify making a yay or nay decision on it.
What happens if the state says we can't say no?
Then, we're shirts are clean, aren't you?
I'm just saying that's also a possibility being looked
But
at.
again, does the state say no when it's not illegal federal?
Well, the state is looking their right. The state's right. And the federal government is saying, okay, we're gonna keep an eye on it.
No.
I mean, that's the research. Like I said, I mean, I came in with a list of.
I appreciate everything you've done, but it's just, there isn't enough traffic. For a little small town like us, there's something wrong in this thing. There's a piece of that pie that is missing, and why are they targeting us as small towns? They Chehalis is shutting them down. They're 90% Centralia, whichever it is, where they got that big warehouse that they tried to establish it.
Well, and the other thing we need to look at is medical and recreational. They're two different animals, and they should be looked at separately. I mean, obviously, my research has shown that the medical side is unregulated, and based on the recent appellate court decision in Kent, it's probably not even legal. All you get out of it is an affirmative defense. Problem is even if you try to prosecute someone, you can't find a King County prosecutor that will prosecute someone. So, if we can regulate it, my recommendation, if we were to allow medical marijuana, that we force them to comply with the same standards that 502
Well, I'll tell you that,
adhere to.
where I went through the example in this medical marijuana thing was my neighbor next door. She died from cancer. She was getting medical marijuana, and the last probably 6 months of her life, she was not even, didn't even know what she was getting. There was no way she could have even smoked it. And I'd sit in my backyard, and there'd be the party going on next door, and man, all of the people and their buddies and everything else were sitting in the backyard there, and they were just smoking up a storm, just going in and doing her prescriptions for medical marijuana, and she wasn't even getting it. So, I mean, that's going on all over everything.
Yeah.
And it's just not regulated.
On the medical side, it's not regulated, and I agree. And if recreational use is gonna succeed at all, they're gonna have to tighten up medical marijuana restrictions, because who's gonna pay twice as much for recreational when you can get medical for half price, and you can find it pretty regular. I mean, that's why a lot of things are so easy to get now.
And they say it's supposed to be non-popular, free flavor, but it's so, you know, they call it, they think we're all idiots. I mean, when they're walking around with his pockets full of cash, it was non-profit.
Oh, I know.
And the other thing is, this thing is all, it's not any worse than alcohol. Okay, so you got alcohol, and then you mix the alcohol with marijuana, and now what you got? I mean, you got a cake of dynamite.
Well, I don't know.
So,
Anyway, I just wanted you guys to know that we're pretty much complete with our work, and if there's any changes, I'll report next week, but most likely this will be a finished product by tomorrow night.
thanks.
Any further business for the council? All right,